Hey guys, welcome to another video. In today's video we will be making a Discord bot that can give out XP and levels for users that are active in your chat, and then at a certain level you can also give them a role, or do whatever you want. So if you've followed my previous tutorials, then you can skip these first few steps. But if not, then you are welcome to join along still. You'll just need to download two things. You'll need to download Visual Studio Code, which is this editor right here, and you'll also need to download Node.js. So both of those links will be in the description. You just click next through the whole installer, and then you're ready to go. So open the folder in Visual Studio Code, and it's going to be blank. We're just going to run through the setup steps real quick. Click View Terminal. And since you have Node installed, you can type npm npm init, and that's npm. Yeah. All right, hit enter through all of these options, and now we got to install Discord.js library. So npm install discord.js -- save. And we're also going to be using a random number library. You can do this just in regular JavaScript, but this library has a very easy method that will eliminate a little bit of math that we would normally otherwise have to do. So npm install random, and then save. And random is the name of the library. All right, so let's get started. Okay, there we go. I had to refresh because the files weren't showing up. So we're going to create the index.js file. This is where our code will go. So we're just going to pretty much do the exact same thing we did last time. We're going to include the Discord library. We're going to create a new Discord client and put it in this bot variable. I'm going to create a quick handler for when messages are sent. So this is where we will, inside these curly braces is where we will respond to messages and commands. And then down here, we're going to tell the bot to log in. And you can go to discordapp.com and to your, click the wrong thing, but you got to go to developer portal, applications, bot, and then copy the token into your bot. Okay, so if you already have a bot, you'll have something that looks like this. That's split. And then down here is going to be all of your things. So like if parts 0 equals hello, whatever. Hi. Okay, so this is all your commands and stuff. So we're going to be writing our code up here. But let's just test this real quick. So in order to run our bot, make sure you save this file. So if there's a little dot right there, that means it's not saved. So Control S is what I use to save, or you can click File, Save. You always save it, and then you come down here and you type node period, and that will run the bot. So when I do that and open Discord, you can see our bot is active. And I'm just going to test the little command I made. Hello, he says hi, perfect. So we know it's working. So now we can get started on the XP and levels and stuff. So first we need a place to store that information, because we can say like right here is where they've sent a message. Someone sent a message in here, but we need a place to store their XP level. So we're going to create a variable, and it's going to be just the stats variable. So the way this is going to work is the stats is actually going to contain a list of guilds, and then inside those guilds is going to be the list of users. So the reason we're doing that is because imagine you have your bot on two different servers, and you are in both servers. You don't want to have the same XP and same level on both servers. You should have a separate level for each server. So this is going to be a list of servers, and then inside each server or guild, you're going to have the list of users and their XP inside that guild. So the way we're going to do that, when the message is sent, so when we start the program, this variable stats is completely empty. There's nothing in it. So we have to check, because the first time someone sends a message in a guild, that guild is not going to exist in here, obviously, because we set it to blank. So if message, let's get the guild, and then we're gonna organize it by ID. So we're gonna take the guild ID and check if that's in the stats object. And actually, we want to do something if it's not in. So it'd be really nice if we could just say not in if the ID is not in, but we can't do that. We have to say if the guild ID in stats equals false. So it's not the prettiest thing in the world, but that just means if the guild ID is not in the stats object, then we're just going to add it. So stats, and then these little brackets mean we're accessing inside the stats object. We're going to take the guild ID and we're going to set that to a new blank list, and this is the list where we'll put users. So now we've got to do pretty much the same thing except for the user. And instead of typing stats message guild ID a million times after this, I'm actually just going to say guild equals stats message.guild.id. So basically, we're just grabbing this value out of there, so that way we don't have to type it every time. We can just type guild, and then that's just actually, let's call this guild stats, because that's a little more accurate. Okay, so now this is the stats for the current guild that whatever message was sent in. So now we can say if message.author, so the message author is going to be the person who sent the message. We're going to look at their ID and see if they have any records in the guild stats. And actually we're checking if they don't. So same thing as above. If we don't have a record of this author's ID in the stats for this guild, then we're going to add them. So stats message.author.id, and then we're going to create a blank. This time it's going to be an object instead of a list. And we're actually going to put some default values. So the stats for this user, we're going to say their XP is 0, their level is 0, and we also want to keep track of when they sent their last message. We're going to set that to 0. But this is going to be the time that they sent their last message, so that way we can compare and only give them XP if it's been more than a minute since their last message. Okay, so now that we have that in place, what we're going to do is give them XP. So the first time that a message is sent in a guild, we add that guild to the stats. Then this basically, the first time that a user messages in a guild, they're not going to have a record in that guild, so we're adding a record and just setting their XP and level and the last message to 0, because they don't have any XP yet. So now these are only going to happen once. Like this will happen once per guild, this will happen once per user. But now the code we're writing is going to happen every single time that a user sends a message. So basically what we want to happen is just give them XP. So we're going to say, and actually again, instead of having to write stats message.author.id, because this is how we access the record for that user, we're going to create a user stats variable and plop that in there, so that way we can just refer to the user stats instead of this whole long thing. So we're going to take the user stats and the user's XP, and we're going to increment that by a random number between 15 and 25, because that is what the me6 bot does. And I think that's a pretty good reference. So actually we need to come up here and remember how we installed that random library. Well, we're going to include that here. So const random equals require random. And that now allows us to use this random right here. We can say random int Int is short for integer, which is just any number that doesn't have a decimal. So 7.5 is not an integer, but 7 is an integer. So between 15 and 25. And yeah, so that's going to give whoever sent the message, that's going to give them XP. It'll give them between 15 and 25 XP. So that's a good place to start. Let's just start there. And then after we do that, just to test that it's working, let's say console.log. Let's print out their name. Message.author.username now has, and then we're going to print out user stats XP. So we'll just say their name and how much XP they have. To test this, save it, Control S. Our bot is going to still be running. So before our changes will update, we have to stop the bot. You can do that with Control C. Make sure you click down here and then do Control C, and then run node period again. And that will run our bot. And let's set these up side by side now. So when we say text here, it's going to give us XP, and the only way we're going to know about that is it'll tell us down here how much XP we have. So test, there, now I have 25 XP. So as I continue to chat, the problem here is so right here I'm accessing stats when I really should be accessing the guild stats. That's my bad. And also right here, we need to change that as well. The user is inside the guild stats. All right, so save that, quit it, restart it, and let's try again. All right, we got XP. There we go. Now it's adding up. So now once we pass 100 XP, we should be going on to the next level, and we should get a message in here that says, hey, congratulations, you've leveled up. So, and then we want to increase the level and then reset the XP. So the way we're going to do that is actually first we need to calculate how much XP is needed before you get to the next level, because it's going to change. So like getting to level 1 is only 100 XP, but if you're level 100 and you want to go to level 101, that's going to be way more XP. So actually just doing a Google search online, I found the formula that's used in the Me6 bot right here. So you don't have to find this web page. You can just type what I type. But we're going to create a variable here called, let's call it XP to next level. So this is going to be the XP that's required to get to the next level in the bot. And I'm just going to paste what I copied, but we're going to have to change this a little bit because this, on that web page, here it is. This isn't really code, it's just kind of math. And so it's pretty close to the code that we're going to actually use. But we'll just have to change it a little bit. So we're going to change this. This is doing a exponential operation, but in JavaScript, this little caret actually does something completely different than what we're trying to do. So what we need to change that to is math.pow, and then change that to a comma. So it's taking, this is just a function that takes level and then takes it to the power of 2, which is what is intended. Then the level here and here actually needs to change to userstats.level. Userstats.level. And let me make this bigger so that way you can see what I'm typing. Okay, so yeah, that's basically it. This is going to give us in this value, or in this variable, it'll give us the value, which is the XP required to get to the next level. So what we can do right here, we're printing this out. We're going to add another log that says XP to next level. We're going to print that out and then add on that much XP needed for next level. Perfect. So let's test that. Control S to save, Control C to quit the bot, and then node period to run it again. So as we say stuff now, it's going to say I have 18 XP and then 100 XP needed for the next level. And yeah, well, we haven't added leveling up yet, but good to know that works. So now that we know how much XP is needed to get to the next level, let's see if the user has enough. So if user stats.xp is larger than or equal to, so if we've reached that or if we've gotten past that level, that amount of XP, then we're going to take the level value, and plus plus means increment it by 1. So it starts out at 0. Once we pass 100 XP, then it'll go from 0 to 1. We also want to reset the XP. So user stats.xp XP equals minus XP to next level. So basically, say we're at 99 XP and then we get 25 XP. That's going to put us at like 124 XP. So that's more than 100, so we should level up, right? But if we just set the XP back to 0, then we're actually losing 24 experience points because we got 24 past the amount we need to level up, so we don't want to lose that 24. So we're just going to subtract 100 or however much it was for that level. And that'll, in this example, we went from 99 to 124. Oh, it's time to level up. So we go to level 1, and then our XP is going to be set to 24. So that way we don't lose our progress towards the next level. And finally, we just need to send a message in the chat that says, hey, you leveled up, congratulations. So message.channel.send, and we're going to send let's mention them. In order to do that, we need to take the author.username. So the message author is obviously the person who sent it, and then we're grabbing their username because we want to mention them. And then we say has reached level, and then we add in the level that they reached. So that's just going to be user stats.level. And I believe that's it. We can go ahead and test that. Make sure you save, quit the bot, restart. If we come here and start typing, all right, we have 21 XP, we need 100, 37, 60, and once we pass 100, boom, Eggwink has reached level 1. And then you can see my XP is back to 18. And then if I type in the chat again, I now need 155 XP to reach the next level. So it'll take a little bit more activity. But you'll notice something interesting right here. It says quote now has 17 XP. So quote is the bot. So if I spam the chat again and level up again, you're going to see every time quote sends a message in the chat, like this is the bot that we're coding right here, and it's sending a message because we're telling it to send a message. But it looks like every time we're sending a message, that's actually coming back through the top here and saying like, oh, a message has been received. Let's give that user XP, and it's giving the bot XP. So if we continue to do that, then eventually the bot would level up itself. So that's not exactly what we want. So in order to prevent that, it's really easy. We just come up here to the top and we do a quick check if message.author.id. So the ID of the person who sent the message, if that's the same as the bot user ID, then we can just call this return command, which will it'll just skip all this stuff. So then the bot won't get any XP. Okay, great. So another thing you'll notice though, so see how I'm level 2? If I quit out here, the bot, and then I restart it again and start typing, then I'm back to level 0, and then I reach level 1 again, and I can reach level 2 again. But every time I quit the bot, it's losing that value. And the reason for that is, well, we haven't told it to save it anywhere. And when we start the bot, we just set that value to blank. So actually what we need to do is save it to a file anytime there's a change, and then we can load that file when the bot loads, and that will load those values so that way we don't lose them every time the bot is reset. So actually one thing we're going to need to do is install a library. So quit your bot if it's running, and type npm install JSON file -- save. So we could do this easily without a library, but this turns it into a one-line deal that's a little bit easier to read. So we're going to require two more things up here. One is fs, which that's just built into Node.js. And then another thing is JSON file. That is the thing that we just installed right here. So we're going to start out, we're going to set this to blank because it's possible, like right now, for example, we don't have the save file. So if we try and load it, there's going to be an error. So we start out with it blank, and then we're going to check if the file exists. So I'm going to say if fs stands for file system, by the way, if fs.exists, and you want exists sync. Exists is a little more complicated. You probably will want to use that in most situations, but it's asynchronous, which means it kind of runs in the background, and we need to run this at the beginning when our bot loads. So we're just going to call our file stats.json. And so JSON as the extension is just the, it's to represent that this is going to contain JSON data, which is the format that we have here. So like this right here is JSON data, or it will be when we save it. Anyway, so if the file exists, then we're going to say stats equals, we're going to load that file into our stats object, equals JSON file dot read file sync. So again, that sync means it's going to happen without doing it in the background, which is what we need to do in this case. And it's the stats.json file. So if we run this now, nothing's going to change because the file doesn't exist, and we're also not saving it yet. So let's go ahead and save that data first. That's going to be super easy. All we have to do, let's come down to here. So this is right after we have added XP and then added the level. After all that, make sure it's not inside this if, because we want to save anytime they get XP, not just only when they get a level. So here, all we have to do is say JSON file dot write file sync, and the two options are the path and then the object to save. So the path is just going to be stats.json, and then the object is going to be our stats object. So anytime someone sends a message and gets XP, then we just, after giving them XP and maybe leveling up if they need to, we save that into this file. And then the next time we start the bot, we load the file if it exists, and we don't lose any of that data. So save it. Oops. Do not do that. Run the bot. And over here, notice there's still no stats.json file. But as soon as I type something in the chat and I get XP, then I might have to refresh. There we go. Then we get that stats.json file. And you can look inside and see it's not super organized, but this is going to be the guild ID. This is my user ID. And then I have 23 XP. I'm at level 0. And my last message, well, we haven't gotten to that yet. That'll be the last thing we do. And if I level up, and I'll level up a couple times. Oh, I might have, okay, there we go. Just got stuck for a second. Okay, there we go. So I leveled up to level 2. And if we check this file, as you can see, I have 156 XP and I'm level 2. And just to test, I'm going to Control C, quit the bot, run it again. And it's going to reload the data from this file, which it saved. And if I type, it remembers that I have this much XP and I need that much. And I should be able to get to level 3 here. Perfect. Alrighty, so that is almost everything. The last thing we got to do is prevent spamming. So like right here, I just spam the chat and I reach level 3 in like 2 seconds. So we want to add a limit of once per minute to gaining XP. So we already have the last message where we're going to keep track of when the last message was sent, but we're not keeping track of that yet. So just down here when we are, actually let's do it right here. When we're giving the user XP, we want to record the current time as being the time the last message was sent. So that's going to be user stats dot last message equals date dot now. So this function is going to return the current time in milliseconds. And the way that works is it's actually the number of milliseconds since some date. I believe it might be able to tell us. It's the number of milliseconds since midnight, January 1st, 1970. So you might think that's kind of an arbitrary date, and you would be right. And if you need to do time that occurs before 1970, then you can't use this function. But we do not need that. We're just keeping track of, if a minute's passed. So if the last message, or no, we're not doing any checking yet. We're just setting the last message to that. And actually we can test that real quick. If I run the bot, it's going to load that data, and I'm going to send a message. It's going to give me XP, but then we can check in here, and aha. When I sent that message, it was this many milliseconds since January 1st, 1970. So that's kind of meaningless to us humans. But now since we know when the last message was sent, when they send another message, we can just check and see, has it been a minute since then? So we're going to add a great big fat if statement in here. And I say that because I'm going to leave, we'll fill in this part later, but we got to put the brackets in the right place. Because I'm going to hide this for a minute. We have all this code, and we got to make sure that the right stuff ends up in there. So make sure you don't include this stuff. This is making sure that the bot can't get XP. This initializes the guild for the first time, and this initializes the user for the first time. After that is where we put the if, and then the open curly brace. Now, this is the stuff that's only going to happen once per minute per user. So actually we need this right here to be outside the if. That's the only line, because we're getting the user's stats and keeping that in a variable. We're actually going to be checking that inside the if statement. So that's why it needs to be outside. But everything else that we've written in this episode needs to be inside there. So basically that just excludes right here where you split the message into parts and you run other commands. We're not limiting that to once per minute. Although you would have to do that separately. You'd have to create another variable somewhere to keep track of command per minute. But right now we're just doing giving XP once per minute. So everything in here is what we want to run once per minute. So giving them XP, and then checking if they level up, and then saving that data. And then this is just, we'll remove this in a little bit, but this is what's exporting or outputting this helpful information. So we'll leave it inside the if statement. Okay, so let's write that check now. Basically, if the time since last message is more than a minute, then we want to do all this. So the way that looks in code, what we're going to do is subtraction. So we're going to take the current time, which is date.now. It's the same thing we did right here. We're going to take the current time and subtract the time that the last message was sent. And so what that's going to do is give us the number of milliseconds that have passed. So if they send two messages like immediately, the amount of milliseconds that have passed are going to be 0. If they wait 100 milliseconds, then this is going to give us the value of 100 milliseconds. So what we want to say is if the time that's passed is larger than a minute. So what is a minute in milliseconds? Well, 1,000 milliseconds is going to be 1 second. So right now, the way I just typed it, this will be, it'll only let you get XP once per second. But we want to do once per minute. So that's going to be 60 seconds in a minute. So multiply 1,000 times 60, and you get 60,000. So that's 6 with 4 zeros after it. And unfortunately, you can't put a comma. That would make it much easier to read, but that would cause an error when you try to run it. So no commas. So that should be it. Now we will only get XP once every minute. So I'm going to pull up my terminal here, restart. And once again, it's going to load this data. So I'm still at level 3 with 33 XP. And when I type something, I'm going to get XP. But it's also going to update this last message sent. So now if I try to send again, you see we're not gaining any more XP. And I can keep saying stuff, but until a whole minute has passed, we're not going to get any more XP. So I'm just going to pause the recording for just a second here. Okay, and it's been about a minute. So now if I come back and hit, or just type something, I will get XP. But now the counter has been reset, and if I type something else, I will no longer gain XP. So that's pretty much it. If you want to assign a role at a certain level, you could come down to in here. So right here is where we are leveling up. And then after that, you can say if user stats.level is larger than or equal to, let's say at level, what am I at right now? I'm at level 3. So maybe at level 4, I'm going to get the next level or a role. And so then in here is where you would give out the role. If you want to know how to do that and you don't know how, you can look at my last video. There should be a little card popping up that will walk you through the steps of how to assign roles. It's just one line of code, but instead of putting it down here in an if where you have a command, you're going to put that line of adding the role right here where you check if the level is above a certain amount. And you could even do this multiple times. Say you want to have a role for multiple points along the level up process. You would basically do something like this. So if the level is 4 or greater, you do one role, and then you could do at 10, you get another role, and then at 25, you could do another role, and you could just do that as much as you want. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this tutorial. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this helpful or you think others might find it helpful, please leave a like. Subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. And if you have any questions or ideas, please leave them in the comments below. I tend to respond to all my comments. And yeah, thanks for watching.